Back to the channel, my workshop journey and the current project of the two kitchen cupboards. We left last week with me just having sawn some of the pieces to rough length and getting rid of some of the rubbish pieces, and fully intending for this week just to crack on and get the thicknesser out and take everything down to size. But during the week I was having a conversation with my neighbour Tim, and he came out with a suggestion that would actually make it a little bit easier to use the planer and the thicknesser, and that's really to limit the length wherever possible of the pieces I'm working with, just because of the way that, well, to use this piece for an example, if I'm pushing that through, there is a tendency with a long piece for it to tip one way or the other as I'm feeding in or feeding out of the table. So Tim's suggestion is limit the length, and that got me thinking that I could also do with the uprights. We faced these long squarish pieces a few episodes ago, and these are, where's my cutting list? These are going to be 30mm square. Now that's far in excess of 30mm, and that's one of the small ones. So my thought was, if I cut the longer pieces roughly in half, that's going to make them more manageable in that way, and then use my table saw to cut these roughly to thickness, and then that's going to limit the amount that I'm using the thicknesser as well. So it's a small change of plan, but hopefully in the long run that's going to save me a lot of work, save me wear on the blades on the thicknesser planer. And if you remember, putting too much material through the planer in last week's episode, it did actually clog up the intake of the dust extraction unit, so it will limit that as well. So that's the plan for this afternoon, is to use the cross-cut saw to again chop these longer lengths down in length a little to make them more manageable, and then get the table saw out and cut the uprights to rough thickness, and then I can put all of those through the thicknesser as well. As I say, that's the plan. Let's crack on. Right, I haven't altered any of the settings on the cross-cut saw since last week, so everything should be cutting roughly to the line, and so that's that done. A pile of partially cut timber. You'll have noticed I haven't cut some of them because I haven't marked them. Those that I have cut, I had already marked roughly where the cuts were going to be, so it's given me some idea what lengths, and really the longest that I'm going to be processing on the thicknesser is about 800mm. So that will stop any chance of the workpiece tipping as it comes off the table. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to set up with the table saw and cut the 30mm uprights roughly to size. And I just want to pause the video at this point just to say that what happens now isn't a rehash of my little supplemental that happened in the last episode. This is just to show an edited section of where I'm using the table saw to cut all of the legs down to rough thickness. So it's just here for completeness, and now let's get back to the video. Well, that mostly went well. The pieces have cut down nicely, so these are the rough sawn pieces, and actually the sawn sides are very well finished, but that's roughly to size, and I've got some nice usable pieces. But just looking at the way that that piece is tapered, I would have had to have taken a lot off with the thicknesser to achieve that. But as I say, a lot of these are usable. But I say it went mainly well. I ended up paying the price for not having the guard on the blade, because right at the end, the last piece, I did nick the tip of my thumb. I'm very lucky to have got away with that one. So that has taught me a lesson. I'm going to have to think of a different way of cutting thicker pieces. I might have to use the bandsaw for that. Be slower, but at least the guards will be there and it will allow me those thicker pieces. Okay, oh, and another thing, I did get a big telling off from my wife about not having the guard on the blade, and for my not wearing a dust mask as well. So I've got a dust mask for later on. So all in all, I've had a right telling off from the person that has the right to tell me off. Okay, so that's that. Let me just set up the thicknesser, and what I'll do is take these pieces down to their finished size of 30mm. So currently these are 34, that one's 32 square, most of them should be 34 square, 34, 32, yeah. So what I'm going to do, I can tell which ones are the sawn edges and which ones, that one and that one are the planed edge. That one's the sawn edge, and that was the one that I didn't take through the saw. But I'll work on the 34mm first and take that down to 30, and then do the same thing for the other side as well. Right, so that's the rough height. Now just got to get the gauge so that I can make sure everything is going to be absolutely on size. And you'll have noticed that I was just marking the side that I was doing or had just done, and then marking 2 other sides as well. It's just so that I know, and just to remind me which side is next to be processed, so I don't get confused. I'm very easily confused, I'm afraid. So that's going well. The vacuum's bearing up well under the load, so let me get set up for the last passes. Well, that's gone well. Still having a little problem with where the dust extraction goes into the impeller, but I'm getting the hang of that, and because you'll have noticed me shaking the hose out, I'd lost quite a lot of the vacuum, the suction on the system because of the impeller blocking up, but we'll crack that one very soon. And very pleased with the uprights. So I now have 30mm all round, and that's excellent. So next time I'll start dimensioning the longer, wider boards prior to actually cutting those to size as well. So all I've got to do now is pack up, make sure the pieces have been picked up off the floor, and then I can go and have my tea. And thanks for coming along with me on this journey, and hopefully you're seeing things that you can perhaps avoid, as in my mishap with my thumb. Hopefully that won't happen again. I will try to remember what I need to in that regard. So look forward to seeing you next time, and if you've got any comments, please leave them in the comments section at the bottom of the screen, and I'll see you next time.